lies where it should be in the consent of the governed. Today, we as patriotic Americans say that we will not be stripped of our means of defense. We will not be deprived of the means to protect the rights endowed to us by the Almighty God, and we will not be tread upon. We will not be arrested for having unpopular opinions or for offending the overly sensitive or for invading safe spaces that shouldn't be there in the first place. We refuse to give up the only means by which we can preserve our life, our liberty, and our pursuit of happiness, and we will not bow our knees to any governing body save the Almighty God. So what can we do? We can do what we are doing now. We can protest. We can demonstrate. We can make our voices heard. We can debate. We can converse. And we can call our politicians and tell them we will not be the silent majority. Also, we can vote. Yeah! We need to make sure that we get like-minded individuals in office that will listen to our voice and the voice of millions of patriotic Americans that have gone before us, and the millions whose blood cries out from the earth to maintain freedom that they have died for. We have allowed our schools to indoctrinate our youth. Many have not voted faithfully, and our society has failed to see real problems which lie only in the human heart, not in an inanimate object. To the media, to the anti-gun crowd, to David Hogg, who is my age, and to Emma Gonzalez, I say this: I'm sorry for your losses, I'm sorry for what you have experienced, and I would not wish that on my own enemy. But taking away an inanimate object is not the solution. After the UK restricted firearms, violent crimes increased threefold, and now they're moving to ban knives. Evil will always find a way to carry out its violent acts. But now we are fighting back. Not only are we marching for our lives, we are marching for our right to protect our lives today. As Ben Franklin once said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor do they deserve safety. I am beyond proud to be an American, to live in this land of liberty, and to live in the greatest country on earth. We have a long way to go, but I love this land with all of me, and I can only pray that you will stand with me and millions of other patriots to preserve our liberty, to keep our country great, and to make it greater. God bless America, God bless our military, God bless our president, and God bless South Carolina. Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Sean Diggers.
Hey, y'all. Man, that was louder than I expected. Sorry. So, before I get started with my written statement here, I'd like to ask, well, originally I was going to ask for a show of hands, but if they saw a bunch of us with our hands raised, you know what they would do. So, who here is it their first time to come to a political rally? Give me a good big hell yeah or something. A little over a year ago, I met a few of these people out here and put together a march that came up Main Street, marched up these steps. There was 34 of us that day, proud Americans. We stood up there and said our piece, and I haven't stopped since. I've been to about 12 different rallies and protests and stuff in the last year, including Charlottesville with some of you out there. And let me tell you, it's not what the media portrayed. people that I was with, 27 of us standing strong, were surrounded by hateful people and called hateful names for standing up for our rights. One of our people got hit in the head with a rock, took 27 stitches, and broke his neck. They didn't find out he broke his neck until later. So I'd like to thank all y'all for coming out here and standing up with us. So once this gets in your blood, it's hard to get out. Once you stand up, it's hard to sit down. And in case you hadn't noticed, there ain't no better time to stand up than right now. So here goes my prepared speech. I've already been introduced. My name is Sean Dugas. Some of y'all know me from Facebook and other places like that. That's spelled S-H-A-M because I was born in the 60s and my parents were children of the 60s, if you know what I mean. So I'd like to thank God for this beautiful day. I'd like to thank Him also for this opportunity to stand before you and exercise my First Amendment rights to protect my Second Amendment rights. I'm a retired Master Sergeant from the United States Air Force with a little over 20 years of service. And I'd like to thank all the veterans from all branches that came out here today to join us. Thank you for your service. Like many of you, I took an oath one time to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. When I took that oath originally in 1987, I had no idea that the domestic war would be in play. And unfortunately, that is the state of our country right now. I'm also a son, a husband, and a father, a human being. I'm a Christian, and I love my family, and I love my countrymen. And the thought of anything bad to happen to any of them breaks my heart, especially those children that are being shot up in these schools. But anyway, that's why I'm here today, to show my support for the Second Amendment. Since the election of President Trump, the corporate media has made a concerted effort to demonize anyone who supported him. And today, we don't stand here as Trump supporters or anything else. Whether you like him or not is irrelevant. Today, we stand for the Constitution, we stand for the Second Amendment, and we stand for Americans all over this country who are not able to stand for themselves. In recent months, this effort has morphed into a demonization of anyone who supports the Constitution of these United States, especially the Second Amendment. As a result of recent events, children are being used to push an anti-American agenda, as seen in the march a few weeks ago. Since then, anyone who questions their motives or the official narrative given to us by the corporate media is automatically cast as a monster who does not care about children. I have 3 adult children, and I love them with all my heart. And it would break my heart to see something bad happen to them.
Hey, Fruit.
Please do not call me a monster.
All right.
Doing good, doing good.
See, you made it down here.
But I'm here today to tell you that there's 2 sides to this conversation, and we're not the monsters that they portray us to be. Instead, as supporters of the Second Amendment and the Constitution, we're law-abiding, freedom-loving Americans who are tired of being told that our opinions are not valid. We are loving family members who want to protect and defend our families in the way that we see fit. We are neighbors who lend a hand when someone is in need. We are the people who volunteer to put ourselves in harm's way, whether through military service, law enforcement, or serving as another type of first responder. Many of us are Bible believers, and those who are not generally support our right to worship as we see fit. And as believers, we have biblical backing in our position. In the Old Testament, God was strict about those who spilled the blood of another. But in Exodus 22:2, we are told if a thief is caught breaking in at night and has struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed. In the red letters of the New Testament, we are told in Luke 11:21, when a strong man, fully armed, guards his house, his possessions are safe. I take this in conjunction with the rest of the Bible to mean that we are to be charitable and loving and giving people, but that we have no duty to stand by and let others threaten our livelihoods. While working to spread the gospel, Jesus said in Luke 22:36, "But now if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one." He knew on their troubles that they might encounter those who would do them harm, especially in those in positions of power who did not want them to spread the good word. When our founding fathers wrote the documents, including the Bill of Rights, they knew the Bible and used it as a basis for these documents and our inalienable rights. They knew that these rights came from our Creator and not from any man or any government. These men had recently fought against the most powerful military force in the world and won. A lot of these men were no different than you and I. Average people who recognized that there was a problem, became organized, and stood up to make a difference. Therefore, when writing the Second Amendment, they intended for the citizens of this great country to maintain arms in order that we could stand against tyranny should it ever become necessary. In a letter to James Madison in December of 1787, Thomas Jefferson wrote, "What country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms." There are those who would argue that well-regulated militia phrase refers to a government-run entity. In response to that argument, I would offer the following quote from George Mason in an address to the Virginia Ratifying Convention in June of 1788. I ask, who are the militia? They consist now of the whole people except for a few public officers. Also in a speech to that ratifying convention, Patrick Henry stated, "Guard with jealous attention the public liberty. Suspect everyone who approaches that jewel. Unfortunately, nothing will preserve it but downright force. Whenever you give up that force, you are ruined. The great object is that every man be armed. Everyone who is able might have a gun." Like Elijah, I have some things that I'd like to ask people to do too. As with many other issues, the first step to resolving a problem is to recognize that there is one. There are those in our country who would take away our rights to make us dependent on a nanny-state government. By your attendance today, it is apparent that you've already taken this first step. The next step is to become educated if you're not already, so that you may defend your position verbally against those who would challenge you about your God-given rights. If you have not already done so and you are so inclined, arm yourself and get the required training to defend yourself and your family and this nation should the time ever arise. These next steps are very important. If you have not already registered to vote, please do so. Our original intention was to have a voter registration table here, but it just fell through the cracks, and I apologize for that. So if you're not already registered to vote, please do so. Educate yourself on the candidates in your local, state, and federal elections. Find out their voting history as it pertains to the Constitution and our rights. Vote for those candidates who put the Constitution and the American people first, especially in the primaries, in this upcoming primary. 2018 is a very pivotal election for our country. As of right now, we're stuck with the two-party dilemma that we have. I'd ultimately like to see that two-party system done away with so that we can just vote for the most qualified constitutional person to stand for our country. In the meantime, in the upcoming primaries, I ask that you please research your candidates. Vote in the Republican primaries for the candidate that upholds your values with the Constitution. Vote for those candidates. And then, come November of 2018, I'm going to do like my friend Will Johnson suggests and vote them out. Every last one. In closing, I'd like to say that I believe we are the majority. We've been silent for way too long. Those who would rather destroy our country and shred our Constitution have made their voices heard. Now it's time that we stand and have our voices heard. Like I said, once this gets in your blood, it's hard to get it out sometimes. So anyone who would like to continue to stand throughout this summer, there will be rallies and events all across this country. The first one that I know about is actually next Saturday on April 21st. I'm not sure exactly where. You can look it up on Facebook. The next one after that is March for Our Rights, and the closest one I know of is in Raleigh. There will be events like this all over this country until we have our voices heard, until we come together, unite, and vote the people into office that need to be there. Also, on September 8th of this year, in Washington, D.C., we're working on Facebook and other social media sites and learning to organize and putting together the Mother of All Rallies in Washington, D.C., on the mall right next to the Washington Monument. I was lucky enough to attend the Mother of All Rallies last year. Any of you on social media may have seen some of the videos from it on Facebook. We didn't have a big turnout, 2,500 people for the whole country. But we had a good time. We stood for our rights and had our voices heard. And we made a little bit of history by having Black Lives Matter speak on our stage, because we told them that we believe in free speech, even if we don't agree with you. So anyway, it's a celebration of American heritage and an opportunity to stand on our nation's capital and have our voices heard. You can find information about that rally at www.motherofallrallies.com. I'd like to thank you all for lending me your ears today. And I urge you to continue to utilize your First Amendment rights to defend your Second Amendment rights. Thank you. A couple weeks ago, while I was working with Tim and the other guys that helped set this up, I don't know if he called me or I called him. Somehow I got a hold of him, but one of my stated goals when I spoke at the Mother of All Rallies in Washington, D.C. was to make sure that Lindsey Graham never got voted into office again. At that time, it meant even if I had to run against him myself. I spoke to this gentleman the other day, a couple weeks ago on the phone, after looking at his stuff on Facebook and speaking with him for about 15 to 20 minutes. I decided to put my vote to him. His name is Mark Sloan. He's the pastor of Emmanuel Gospel Tabernacle in Greer, South Carolina. He is pro-Second Amendment. He is pro-constitutional carry and pro-open carry. From the Greenville, Greer area, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mark Sloan, candidate for the U.S. Senate in 2020, running against Lindsey Graham.
Thank you, Sean. How's everybody doing? It's going to be a tough act to follow, Elijah and Sean. Elijah stole most of my speech. but that's good. Repetition is always good. But there's one thing I'm glad of right now, and that's Hillary Clinton is not in the White House. The next thing that'll make me happy is we get Lindsey Graham out of the Senate. So most of you know that America is under attack. Not by terrorists, not by Muslims, not by extreme radicals, but it's under attack from within. We are starting to lose freedoms that we once was never questioned on, that were untouchable. Americans are trying to destroy Americans, and we have to stop that. The media, they would rather lie than tell you the truth. Abraham Lincoln said, "America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves." If we don't vote, and if we don't vote these liberal politicians out of office, we will be a part of destroying this country. We will be a part of destroying the Constitution. We have to protect the Constitution. Even in Lincoln's age, he saw the potential for self-destruction, and it's more evident today than it ever was. Unless we place God-fearing people in positions of leadership, people that are willing to pray, people that are willing to put this country first, people that are willing to put Americans first, which is my motto for my campaign, the America we know will cease to exist. Lindsey Graham even said, "America is not yours." He's dead wrong.
He is wrong.
It is ours.
Yeah.
And it's time that we take it back.
Yeah.
Mr. Graham only cares about what benefits him. His voting record reflects that. He don't care about the people of South Carolina. All he cares about is what he can get for himself. Abraham Lincoln also said, "No man is good enough to govern another man without that other's consent." So it's time that we tell everyone in office now that we don't consent to them governing us, and we need to vote them out. The majority of all politicians and incumbents need to be voted out this next coming election. We need to make sure that we get some God-fearing people that want to stand for the Constitution, that don't want to destroy it, that don't want to take away rights that were given to us years ago. Even a retired Supreme Court appointee said the Constitution should be done away with. The Second Amendment should be done away with. I say no. I say we keep everything we have by putting people in office that will be owned by the people of the state that they represent. It is my goal not to take any donations from any high-performing companies or anything of that nature. If I'm going to be owned by anyone, I want to be owned by each and every one of you. That's who I want to report to. I don't want to report to BMW, GE, or the large corporations that buy politicians. No. I want to report and be owned by the citizens of the state I want to represent. I was really embarrassed at the State of the Union address when the Democrats acted the way they did. That's just another tool they have to divide this country. So we need to take that wedge out. I agree with Sean. I don't like a two-party system. We need to put the most qualified man or woman in office that is willing to support what each and every one of you want. Not what they want, but what each and every one of you want. It was really appalling when they refused to stand and represent the sacrifices that some of the people that were invited there, when everybody else stand and applauded. So I want to take a second here and thank all of our servicemen, former servicemen, and all of our first responders for the job they do. It is those people that help us keep the freedoms that we have. And we have to keep those people. They have to be supported. Our military should be the strongest in the world. And our president's getting it back where it needs to be. But he needs people in the Senate and the House that's going to support him. And that's my goal. Not to stand against the president, not to worry about trying to get him impeached or anything like that. It's to support the president and this country and this state of South Carolina that I love. It's time the citizens of this state and this nation put all of our elected officials on notice and replace them. Another quote from Mr. Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln. As you can tell, I kind of like him. He said, "We the people are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution." And that's what we have now up in Washington. We have a bunch of people that want to pervert and overthrow the Constitution, which is just fine the way it's wrote. There ain't nothing wrong with it. Doesn't need to be changed. Doesn't need to be altered. It was wrote by our founding fathers. And we should leave it the way it is because it serves the purpose it was intended for. No better time than right now to take back our country. I want to thank each and every one of you that come out. Show your support for the Second Amendment. To show your support for the Constitution. We need more people like that. More people that are willing to step up for this great country. So I want to give you a little task, a little goal to help me out. It's time that we take back our country and our state. So I know the election for Lindsey Graham is a few years off. It's in 2020. So I'm not a current politician. So I got to start early. I got to beat the ground. I got to get my name out. So I would ask that you check out my website, check out my information. It's very easy, marksloan.net. So I'm pretty sure a bunch of the ladies out here have watched the TV show Grey's Anatomy. Is that true? Okay, so everybody knows there's a Mark Sloan on Grey's Anatomy. So if you just punch in Mark Sloan on Google, it's not going to find me. It's going to find you a movie actor, which is not me. So make sure you either punch in Mark Sloan for U.S. Senate or marksloan.net. If you're willing to help me, if you're willing to hand out flyers, if you're willing to go door to door, if you're willing to spread my name, there is a contact tab on my website. You can fill out your information and we can get back in touch with you of how you can help us. In the Declaration of Independence, our Declaration of Independence, there's a sentence that resonates within me. And it says, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute a new government. It's time that we institute that new government. All of these established Republicans, all of these Democrats that don't have the best interest of the country in mind, we need to kick them out. And it starts this year with the midterm elections. Once again, as the preceding speakers have mentioned, I urge you, if you have not registered to vote, register. It's very easy. If your license is up for renewal, you can do it in the DMV when you renew your license. It's real easy to go on the website and do it. Don't take but a few minutes. It's very easy. I encourage you to register and vote. Because if you don't, guns that are legal today will not be legal tomorrow. There's nothing wrong with an AR-15. I saw an article the other day where someone wants to introduce a bill to do away with all guns that resemble military weapons. Well, your pistols are at risk if they do that, because a pistol is a pistol, and the military uses pistols just like you can go buy at a gun store today. An AR-15, that gun's not going to kill nobody. It's the people behind that gun that we've got to keep out. Those are the people that we need to get rid of, or we need to watch, or we need to keep from owning a gun. I urge you, if you don't have a gun, purchase one, as Sean said. Get your training. I don't know of a gun store around that don't offer training with the purchase of a gun. I encourage you to stand and support candidates that will not put illegals in front of American citizens. I urge you to vote for candidates that refuse to spend wastefully.